Never in the history of anything has a child sat in timeout and thought to themselves, I need to make better life choices. Their brains just don't work that way. We need to find alternatives to timeout that you can control and that actually help kids. Hey, what's up? It's Candace from GIGGLEZILLA.com. GIGGLEZILLA.com because just in case you don't know, we do have a website with some really cool articles on it. So check us out. Today we're going to talk about alternatives to timeout because when you isolate kids or shame them by putting them in the corner, it actually teaches them that it is not okay to express unpleasant emotions. So what do? They think they're gonna go to timeout or they did something inappropriate. They hide their emotions. And you guys, newsflash, that's not what we want. We don't want our kids hiding their emotions. So we're gonna talk about what else you can do. I know it's crazy. Everybody thinks timeout is the solution to misbehavior, but there are other options out there. Something you can do other than timeout is called a time in. So with a time in, you don't send them away to their room. You don't shame them by making them put their face in the corner. The goal of a time in is to connect with the child even when they're misbehaving rather than sending them away. It's the opposite of a time out because you actually remain with them. So in a timeout, you send them to the corner or you send them to the naughty chair or you send them to their room. With a time in, you actually spend that time with them while they process these emotions. You can come down to their level and say, I can see that you are really upset. Do you want to tell me what's going on? Sometimes these emotions are so big, they can't tell you what's going on. So you can say, you know what? I am here with you. If you need me, I am right next to you, okay? And you just let them process through those emotions. Sometimes it's screaming, sometimes it's kicking, not kicking you, but just throwing a tantrum on the floor. And sometimes it's crying, but they need space to get those emotions out. It's important that the parents stay calm during this because if you're worked up and they're worked up, nobody's gonna get anywhere and it's just gonna get worse. Another part of time in is to create a calming corner or a cool down corner. This is a space anywhere in your house that you create or in your childcare center that allows children to go there to calm down. Usually there are stuffed animals there, there are books there that they can read, or there's an activity there that allows them to take their mind out of the thing that's causing them to misbehave. So another option is asking them to start over. The trick to asking them to start over is that you have to catch it in the sweet spot and you have to catch it before the full-on tantrum starts. So if you can tell they're starting to get worked up and you're starting to get worked up, or they are saying things that are really mean or hurtful, you just come down to their eye level and say, hey, listen, I can tell you're having a really hard time. Can we just start over? Can we start over with a hug? Or can we start over with a high five? And the first time you say this, they may have no idea what you're talking about. What do you mean by start over? And then you can just explain to them, we're gonna hit the reset button. We said some hurtful things and we're misbehaving and we're gonna backtrack a little bit and we're gonna start over. Or can we start over with an apology? You said something that really hurt mommy's feelings. I never force kids to say that they are sorry. If they're not sorry, I'm not gonna force them to. I will express what was hurtful and that it is nice to say you're sorry when you feel like you shouldn't have done something. But if you don't feel sorry right now, that's okay. If you change your mind, you can come back and apologize later. But can we start over anyway? They may say yes or no if they understand what you're talking about. This works great with 5, 6, 7-year-old kids because they can understand and they can grasp the concept of what you're trying to say. The next thing you can do is give them 2 choices. Because I'm pregnant and I'm breathing for 2. If you do this, when they are misbehaving, it empowers them. Like when kids are misbehaving, sometimes it's because they feel like they don't have control. It's like a loss of control. They're trying to regain control of their emotions or regain control of a toy or a situation, whatever it is. So they act out. When you give them choices, they still feel empowered, and yet you remain in control. So if in the morning they're trying to get dressed, and if they're throwing a tantrum because they don't want to get dressed, then ask them what they would like to wear. Do you want to wear red shorts or do you want to wear blue shorts? You have to get dressed, but which choice would you like to make? Usually they'll pick one or the other. If they're doing something that's unsafe and you want to use this option to give them two choices, you can even ask them what they think a better choice would be, okay? If they're kicking their sister or they're biting another kid at daycare, ask them what they think an alternative could be. Tell me 2 other choices you could have made rather than kicking or biting. Sometimes they'll think for a minute and come up with a choice, and sometimes they can't do it on their own, and that's where you come in, where you can help them. Well, instead of kicking, you could have used your words. Another one that I think is really important that I use all the time is redirecting, and I've done a full video on redirecting, so I won't exhaust this point. But if you see that they are engaging in unsafe or unwanted behavior, you take that same activity that they want to engage in and you redirect that behavior to something positive. If they really want to jump and they're jumping off your couch, let them jump on the trampoline or go and jump rope, things like that. So take that activity that they want to do and move it to something safe or positive. Pretty simple, right? The next thing you can do is ask yourself, when is the last time you've engaged in an activity that allows you to really connect with them? It doesn't have to be expensive. You could go for a walk or play a board game and just talk to them. So keep in mind, and this is a really big point that I would like to make, kids usually learn really fast. They will usually stop engaging in behaviors that don't get them what they want. So keep that in mind when they are misbehaving and you are tempted to give them what they want rather than giving them a timeout or a timeout alternative. So basically, if they learn that screaming and shouting and kicking doesn't get me an extra popsicle after dinner, eventually they'll stop doing that, right? But if you give in to that, then they will continue doing it. The last thing I'll say, if you do have to use a timeout, because I think there is an appropriate place and appropriate time for a timeout, use them few and far between. The reason I say this is because timeouts can be exhausting for you and they can be exhausting for the child. Like, they are not gonna sit in a corner and rethink their life choices. If they do need a timeout, the shorter the duration, the better. And I say that because after a few minutes, like, they forgot why they were in timeout. If they're in there 5, 6, 7 minutes, they are thinking about something completely different. They're probably playing in the corner. They're ready to get up. You've probably gone over 5 or 6 times to put them back in that corner. Give them a couple of minutes to think about it and to take a break, and then go back and have a conversation with them. So if you need to give them a timeout, say, you know what, let's just take a break. I want you to have a seat for a few minutes, okay? They can have a seat, and then you go back later and have a conversation with them about why they needed to take a break. And it's critical that at the end of them taking their break that you restore your relationship, because sometimes timeouts can feel like a terrible punishment and like they are being shunned or they have done something really terrible. And sometimes they do things that are really terrible, but that doesn't mean they need to feel shunned, and sometimes they feel unloved. So when the timeout is over or the break is over, talk to them for a few minutes and then give them a hug and remind them that you love them. So we've talked a lot about alternatives to timeouts. I want you to pick one. Go and try it, and please remember that the same way that timeouts are not one size fits all, alternatives to timeouts are not one size fits all. What works for one kid may not work for another, so pick one to try. If that doesn't work, pick another one. The trick is to pick something that you can control. If you found any value in this video, please subscribe to this channel, and if you're up for the challenge, leave a comment. Let me know what you think. That is what I wanted. That's all I wanted to say. Video over. Just go find alternatives. I'm not gonna help you do it. Do it on your own. Okay.